Hey everybody, we are here today with a drummer and musician, Jim Cavanagh. How you doing?
Rob, how are you?
Pretty good. You notice how I said drummer and musician?
Hmm. You can have two opinions. We're one and the same. Depends on who you ask.
What they get on the ACT to rule, right? And a drummer no. Yeah, man, I know you and I have played at least one gig together before, and we've seen each other kind of around at
Yeah.
Knuckleheads and jams for a while. And really glad that you're here today and just here to talk about some music. But for people who don't know you, give me maybe a couple minute brief kind of history of yourself, like what you've been doing music wise or in life or whatever.
Well, sort of born into a musical family. My mom was a honky-tonk piano player, played roadhouses and stuff, so there was always a piano in the house. Went to a Christmas party when I was 5 and was just taken by the drums. And but I had a stepdad who didn't care for me very much, and I wasn't his favorite person, and he really didn't like drums. They thought they were too loud, and they thought they were too expensive. So he would never let me play around the house. So I didn't actually get to start playing until I was 18.
Oh wow!
When I moved away and went to college.
Wow.
And I met a fellow there who was a drummer, and we would take his drums down to the field house at Warrensburg, over by the football field. You could rent the building for $5 a day, and we'd set up a stereo, and we'd play along with James Brown and let's see, Moby Grape, the Young Rascals, all the bands back in the late 60s. And then the Motown guys were there, and Hendrix and Cream and all those guys were just starting to come out then about that in the next year. And then just basically started playing from there. I consider myself a street drummer. I learn everything in the street. I learn everything playing. I think a guy misses out on a lot of rudiments because when you're in a garage band, you have to play forceful enough to be heard over the guitar and bass, which means that you can't use a lot of finesse because you don't have mics, you don't have any amplification. You're the only acoustic instrument in the band.
Right.
And so a lot of guys miss out on a lot of fundamentals and rudiments because they don't feel like they're getting enough power out of that to actually contend with the other guys are with.
Sure.
So a lot of guys that come up from those ranks do a lot of single stroke rolls. They learn to play their own technique. Bonham, those guys are great. Bonham does a lot of double stuff and rudimental stuff, but you can't really tell because he had great hands.
Yeah.
But Bonham and Mitch Mitchell and Bobby Colomby were the guys that I listened to when I was younger. Colomby was with Blood, Sweat, and Tears.
Yeah.
And Danny Serafin was Chicago. Those are the guys I learned how to play from.
That's cool. Yeah. So you were definitely non-trained.
Yeah.
Then.
I'm not a legitimate musician.
A legitimate musician. Yeah, that's cool, man. And I know what you're talking about with the idea of the kind of typical different genres that you hear if you're listening to a lot of only rock, and then you've been in a lot of garage bands where, like you said, you kind of miss out on a lot of this other stuff because you're forced to just play really hard and keep volume with everybody else, but at the same time, I wonder if a lot of those guys that were trained to do dynamics really well, I wonder if they sometimes struggle to push a little bit when they have to. I don't know if you.
I think that's the individual. Because everybody's got that artist in him. Everybody's got that drummer in him that wants to be let out.
Yeah.
Okay, and you learn dynamics. If you want to be a dynamic drummer, you learn dynamics. If you listen to the good ones have dynamics.
Yeah.
I had to learn how to play quiet.
Yeah.
I've got 3 or 4 different ways that I can tone down my drums when I have to play a gig. If I'm playing a quiet gig, I have quiet cymbals. I have quiet drums.
Yeah.
That's the stuff I take to that gig. When I'm playing a big gig, I'll take a big set of drums and I'll take my loud cymbals.
Yeah.
They're not any bigger. There's just the way they make them. They're louder and they're not as fast.
Yeah.
There's more ring to them. And so you have to learn. It's your instrument. It's like you learn how to be quiet and loud on the violin, and I learned how to do it on drums.
Sure.
And a lot of guys don't, because a lot of guys think they have to be heard. And to them, being heard is more important than actually the presentation, which is my big thing in music is presentation, because you don't have to be a great musician to present well, okay? But you do have to present so that it's pleasing to people.
Yeah.
And I think that's every musician's job. Everyone's going to play a song, and everyone can probably play the song, but some guys can present it better, and that's what you feel. Their art comes through in their presentation.
I totally agree. So on that topic, you were kind of talking about the style of each of drummers and what they're trying to bring to this, and your mentality you're talking about. It's not just me, it's this group, that and it's a whole presentation that your band is trying to portray. And you talked a little bit about volume. One of my big frustrations with this idea of the band portraying the band, not happy fun time for the drummer, kind of, with volume, and also with kind of the amount of crap that you're playing. Can you talk a little bit about being busy? Talk about that.
Well, it's fun to be busy, but problem of it is it also clutters everything up. Because it isn't just the drummer. If the drummer's going to be busy and filling in a lot of stuff, then the rhythm guitar player, the lead guitar player are going to look for places to put stuff. The side guys, harmonicas, horns, they're going to look for every little spot in the song where they can put a note so they can be heard. Playing with you is great because you stand there and you play your part. Butch Schmidt played with a bunch of guys, saxophone player. Played with everybody you can think of. Joe Cocker for a long time. He will stand on stage, and when it's time for him to play his part, he'll play his part. He doesn't noodle, and constantly noodling clutters up the songs. And at the same time, when one guy gets loud and everybody tries to come up to him instead of trying to bring him down, it just creates more noise. I'm in a band now called Blue Plate Special with Phil Shirelli and Gary Holub and Willie Newell, and we play a lot of private parties, and we play a lot of small clubs, and if we play in a room like this, we're very quiet. We've been asked to turn it up, but when we play, it's such a pleasure because we can hear everything that we're all playing, and we don't have to try to find what the guitar part, we don't have to see where the cue to come in because it's there, because we can hear it. And the jams get out of hand. These guys get up there once a week. They have 20 minutes or whatever to make their print on life, and they're going to do it, by God. And it just makes a wreck out of it.
I definitely want to talk about the jams in a minute. But with drummers, so we talked a little bit about the idea of people doing. So there's also kind of busyness through the entire song. But I've noticed a lot, and bass players are sort of like this too, where it's just fill. I mean, like every 5 seconds is a fill, and that one thing that frustrates me is because, again, I don't know if I do this all the time, but I definitely have that mentality that you just said of I'm gonna very much think about when I need to play in this song. That's the word that's always coming into my head is when.
Well, pocket. Pocket.
Well,
that's what drummers call it and bass players call it.
Well, I guess I always think of the pocket as like the rhythm through the whole song, being in rhythm. I'm thinking more of the place when, and the fact that when they do fills, especially like a bass player, that's my little spot, right? We always talk about in blues where you have sing, play, and that little play spot when drummers and bass players do their little fill right there every single time. I mean, it's like, I seriously sit there like, why am I here?
Well, it gets old. And then, guys have their own perfect fills, and some guys don't have a lot. Like I have tried over the years to bring variety to what I do. And I'm trying to keep the beat. I can't do anything about speed because that's a whole band thing. This thing of the drummer keeping the tempo is just a bunch of hooey. Because if nobody's listening to the drummer, what's going to happen? They're going to go with the fastest guy because no one wants to get left behind. And there are some guys who play on the head of the beat, some guys who play on the backside of the beat. And if you get a bass player playing really ahead and you get a drummer playing way behind, you can't tell what's going on, but it doesn't feel right. And so that's what you've got to do is I try to establish a groove when I'm playing, and I try to not put too many fills in. Maybe I'll put more in if we're doing a jam or something because that's more of a free form thing.
Right.
But I've got to give some people some place to go.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'm not a solo guy. I really don't care about solos.
Mm-hmm.
I get distracted. I start thinking. I lose what I'm doing. But I really enjoy fills. So when I listen to drummers, I listen to how do they do their fills? How tasty are their fills? You know, because I was in a ZZ Top tribute band for 9 years.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, 3 guys, and most of the fills are drum fills.
Yeah.
A lot of them are double and triple tracked. So I have to make up a lick based on what people hear on their car radio, based on 3 tracks.
Yeah.
You know, and it works out because people are comfortable. And that's the thing about tribute acts, and a lot of bands have gotten away from playing things like the record. But a drummer usually plays things like the record because it gives people some place to go. And that's what I miss. And a lot of the jams is if a guy is playing a solo and he's not playing what you're used to hearing, that you don't know where the cue is, you don't know where to come in. Okay, and so I like the comfort of paying homage to a solo, and then doing it on your own.
Yeah.
You know, making it your own, but you can make it your own without, making it bad.
Yeah. So you're saying with the argument of do it like the record or not like the record, you're saying that it's really that you enjoy really taking enough of it. And that's a very arbitrary thing, taking
Sure.
enough of the thing so that everybody does know sort of what's going on, but then make it your own enough, and it's really hard. That would be the fun of it, is drawing that line, right? Of how much,
How many drummers try to make a song their own? Think about it for a second. Okay, my favorite band right now, and has been for a few years, is Government Mule.
Mm-hmm.
I love Matt Apps.
Yeah.
Okay, Matt is not a busy player. He's a very sparse player.
Mm-hmm.
When he plays, it's brilliant. But a lot of times he's there, he's dynamic, he's forceful, and he's sort of driving the song along. But he's not doing a bunch of crap.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? And so, in my background, when I was listening to the Rascals and listening to Jane Brown, I learned, and back in the old days, everybody played the song like the record.
Mm-hmm.
Okay?
Yeah.
That it's really a comfort thing for me.
Mm-hmm.
Because I don't know what all these other guys are going to do.
Mm-hmm.
I know how the song's going to go, and I know what's supposed to be where, but I don't want to put it in the wrong place. So it kind of keeps you on your toes.
Mm-hmm.
And even if a guy doesn't play it like the record, as long as he'll give you the same cue, if you're in a band, not
Right.
in a jam,
Right.
you're winging it.
Yeah,
You're listening,
sure.
you're being aware. Your antennas are all the way
Yeah,
up.
sure.
to the jam
Yeah.
session.
You mentioned another thing about fills and how some people have like 2, or I'm joking, but
Mm-hmm.
like one of the drummers that I actually really like is Nick Mason from Floyd, and one of the things that I'm always impressed by with him is I always joke with myself. I hear doon doon ba ba doon doon ba boom on like every single hit. It always sounds like the same fill, and it's because it is, But the thing that I'm always impressed by him is that there's songs like, what was the example? Like Us and Them.
Mm-hmm.
And so, I'm always
Sure.
impressed by his drum. I'm like, there's a million drummers out there that could not play that song like him.
Uh-huh.
And how not overpowering he is with volume, obviously, but also just that really super laid back beat and really hitting it exactly where he needs to hit it with a
Sure.
really good pocket. And the fact that he doesn't do 19,000 fills or 19,000 different fills, and he's just really solid at all times, and he's got incredible musicianship, and I'm always really impressed by him.
Yeah.
And that would be against the idea, his playing would be against the idea of learning a million different kinds of technique in a school.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously all those guys are super trained. They're all very good musicians,
Sure.
but he would blow that idea out of the water of needing to know 1,000 different things and how he uses what he has, and it's perfectly exactly what Floyd needed.
Yeah.
I don't know what you think about drummers that are like that. You kind of alluded to it earlier.
Well, yeah. Basically, the drums are like punctuation, in a sentence. We accent what we know is coming up. We kind of give a little lead into it, and a couple of bass player friends of mine have commented on that I lead them into a change well, without starting measures ahead.
Yeah, right.
And you don't throw the drums at a song. You let a song happen. I started singing about 8 or 10 years ago.
Mm.
And so the song became more important than the drum part when you're doing something like that. And that's where the whole idea of presentation, because when I, over 10, 12 years ago, I was just banging away on drums. And then until when you start singing, you start realizing that, this is something, this is what the people are really hearing. That people don't drive 20 miles to hear a guy do a lot of fills on drums. People come to hear a song presented well.
Yeah.
And that's what everybody needs to think. And the good thing about my little band is we all think the song comes first.
Yeah, that's really great.
We don't play long solos. We've got a great keyboard player, Willie Newell. Just tears it up. He's played with Michael Berg, Head East, Tommy Castro, people like that. Fine player. And he's got a couple of songs he plays some solos on, but not very many. The rest of us, we just want to do more songs in a night.
Yeah,
as many songs
cool.
as we can play in an evening is what we want to do.
Right. Yeah, that's really great, man. When you can get people that are all in that same situation and so I'd love to talk about bands in general again here in a minute, but keeping on this idea of fills and how much to play. I've found that I don't know if you look at it this way, but I kind of look at it as there's obviously moments in the song that I need to come out and I remembered I was going to say you were talking about having a certain perspective just being a drummer, and then when you started singing, all of a sudden you changed your perspective of what is the point of this crap right now?
Exactly.
It's it's vocals, and maybe the vocal is one of the big presentations, but we're all in this big thing coming at each other. I think that's really awesome. I mean, how many drummers you think that would help?
I think it'd help a lot of guys because Kansas City music has changed a lot. We don't have the venues we used to have. We don't have the kind of venues you used to have. There are millions and millions of musicians out there, and it's like trying to find a spot in the song to put your harmonica part. Okay, you've got to find a place to play. But at the same time, the quality of the music can't suffer. It's just because you finally get a job and you get going. You can't just let it go. I have a friend named Chris Fryer. He's the drummer for a Zach Brown band. I used to go down to his house in Birmingham, and we'd rehearse down there and practice. And I'd steal licks from him, and he'd tell me he was stealing licks from me, but he couldn't steal any. The guy's Buddy Rich good.
Quit being humble.
But he used to say, don't practice when you're playing, and don't play when you're practicing. And so when I rehearse, I know what I'm going to try to work on that day. And when I'm playing a job, if there's a way that I can put something in there that I've worked on, I'll do it. Other than that, I keep it straight. I keep it the way the guys are used to hearing it until I've practiced something and I've worked it up and I know that I can do it. So Chris was a good influence on me, and he's a heck of a drummer. When he was in a funk fusion band with O'Teal Burbridge called the Peacemakers. Talk about your funk. That guy, he's such a good drummer. But I learned a lot from him because he's busy, but everybody in the band's busy because they were playing fusion. But what they were doing, a guy writes a song, he writes dynamics into the song. And so the drummer doesn't have to find the dynamics, the bass player doesn't have to find the dynamics, they're already there. You have to know how to present those dynamics so that they're pleasant to people listening to you.
Yeah, and that's a thing that I think is really different about classical, where I've been from basically, and then going into this band realm, is that decision making process. In classical, people don't like me saying this, but in classical we don't got any decisions to make. It's already told to you, and that makes things a lot easier in some ways. And I think because I was very much trained by ear, unlike a lot of classical people, I think the finding it part with all these other bands was really easy for me because I've always had a high level of listening. But I like what you're saying, where you've got to be listening to everybody, or else you don't know, you just don't know what to do. It's all you, and if you don't, that's what a lot of guys that have been on the show have talked about. One of their big annoyances with musicians in general is people aren't listening. It's me, and
Well, you can tell when a guy starts playing, no matter what instrument he's on. You can tell after a couple of measures, you know, if he's really thinking, hey, watch this, you know.
That's and so, and one more thing on that is that I was starting to get into was the idea that I know when I'm trying to think about this when idea, when I need to be playing, or when I need to throw my really good riff in, or when I need to do this. To me, it kind of changes depending on what situation I'm in. Obviously, like you just mentioned a thing, like with the style of music, also this can change for me. Like you mentioned, doing some fusion stuff. That is a generally fairly busy framework as opposed to maybe like really old school country. You know, it maybe is an opposite spectrum, or jazz is another one where that music sounds good when it's generally busy, but old school country does not sound good when the drummer and everybody else
a banjo
is busy.
playing one note is not going to sound good.
Yeah, right. And so the idea is like, I had another guy come at it exactly opposite from what I think is that I think when you're in like an 8-piece, that's a time where, in my opinion, the drummer needs to do like 0 fills, because in our old country band, you already have violin, steel, lead guitar, you already have 3 people doing fills, and then when the rhythm guitar, bass, and drummer doing fills, now we've got, you know, in that little space in the blues, you know, now we got 6 people doing fills, you know, and so like, does that affect you at all? Like thinking about obviously what music, but even the amount of people in the band, like when you have a trio, to me, there's so much room there what do you think about that?
Oh, I agree 100%. You know, you can hear one hand clapping, but you can't pick that hand out if you're at Chief Stadium, okay? Because everybody's clapping at the same time. And if you go to a jam session, you know, one of the best jams, well, we'll get on jams a little bit later, but when you get a lot of people on stage and they're all trying to make their point, you know, the song disappears. You know, the dynamics go away. And a guy will start off saying, let's do some dynamics on this song. The dynamics are a lot more than just volume.
Yeah.
You know, and yeah, you've got to have space, and you've got to leave space in the song, because you don't look at a piece of music and see a black line going all the way across it. You see 4 dots or 8 dots or 16 dots in a measure. You don't see one big black line going across that set, you know. And guys, we get a bunch of guys together as the band reading that line, and that's what it turns out to be. It just turns into noise.
Oh yeah.
And the only way they can stand out when there are that many people playing is volume.
Yeah.
And that kills it for the crowd.
All right.
And it kills it for jamming, because you can't pick up on the emotion somebody's trying to put into their music. Because, you know, the coolest thing about, you know, most music is you get emotionally bonded to a song. Yeah. Whether you're playing funky music, White Boy, or whether you're playing something by Pink Floyd, the emotion of that tune is that's why you want to be a musician. That's why you want to play. Yeah. You identify that, and you want to be a part of that. Right. And if you can't pick out a part that you remember, pick out a part that draws you to it, that inspires you, you know, then it's a waste of time.
Yeah. I really like that, man, because you're right. I mean, it's hard to tell what's actually going to grab somebody to be a musician, or even just a fan to like that song. But even like when you said the emotion, like the thing that came into my head was even like a really heavy rock song, and how that's presented like on a movie or something. Like when you have the guy walk in and he's, you know, people are really gravitating towards the feeling of this guy coming in. It's not just the notes, it's not, you know, it's the feeling of this guy's a badass, you know, and but it's the emotional aspect of that, which is why that part is so cool. And that's really what
Kashmir. Led Zeppelin, Kashmir.
Yeah.
Think about it. Do you sit there and wait for the words? No.
Yeah.
You're sitting there, da-da-da, and you're growing inside as that scale goes up. You're going up inside right along with that.
Yeah.
And you're not listening to any words. You know.
Right.
You're getting into that song. Mule songs are like that. Government Mule. I don't know how they do it. They have lyrics. People don't dance. You go to to a venue and to see a mule show, everybody is nodding their head at the same time. 2,000-3,000 people.
Right.
because they're into what they're doing, and it's the way they're laying that song down.
Yeah. And that's what's lost when people don't when musicians don't consider that,
Yeah.
and is that your I guess your kind of point, I guess, is that you're destroying the song. You're destroying like the whole point of the song, when you don't consider
If a guy's
that,
thinking, can they hear me?
Yeah.
And are they going to like this next lick? Okay.
Right.
Those are, if a guy's thinking
Well,
that, he's never going to be a good jammer.
Yeah. So I guess a really awesome segue, because the show is so awesome and my segues are amazing, is so when you have guys that are not doing this, one of my struggles after I ran my own rock band for a couple of years, and just thinking about band dynamics, and when you're with a group of guys, is the idea of what do you do about that now? Like you're in a band, you've got your 5 dudes or whatever, and you have this person that's either, there's a whole bunch of things that could happen. They're just being flaky, they don't answer the phone, or they don't have this same musicianship concept, or they want to play it not like the original, or this handful of things that you disagree on.
Sometimes it isn't even musical.
Yes, and most of the time it's sometimes not even musical, and so I think I have an answer for this, but I love to hear everybody's opinion on this, because the one annoyance that I'm having now as a young adult is the idea that I was waiting my whole life for these grand answers to everything, these grand philosophical, secret of life stuff, and then when this happens, I want there to be an answer, and the overwhelming response I've gotten from people is, there's nothing you can do. You just move on. Because you can't change people. You can't. That's the answer I've been getting from a lot of people.
You don't have a right to change. Well, here's the way I look at it. Okay, you're going to get 3, 4, 5 guys in a band, hopefully. Mm-hmm. More than that, you've got a horn section, and then you got to work with those guys. You got 4 artists in there. Most of the time, they're smart. Mm-hmm. The really good musicians are pretty bright. Right. The ones that I've met. Yeah. And the really good musicians are pretty crazy. The good writers are crazy. Yeah. Let's put it that way. I played on an album last year with a guy who's he's a brilliant guy, mm-hmm. but he is not with the rest of the world. We got nominated for a Grammy. Yeah, wow. Okay. Yeah. We were 139th out of 3 million on Reverb Nation. He's not all there. But he's a writer. Okay. This guy can write, but he thinks that way. Okay. And when you get in a band, and when you're younger, you put up with it. Mm-hmm. And so you're in a band, you're young, you're putting up with it because we're getting gigs. Okay. But you're starting to resent a guy. Yeah. And every time he does something a little off key, you resent him a little more because it triggers it. Mm-hmm. Okay? And your resentment can sit there and it can grow like grass, and all of a sudden, like a weed, it'll pop up. Yeah. Okay. The best band to ever be in would be like a benevolent dictatorship. Mm. You got to have a guy that runs his band the way the band should be run, the way he wants it to be run. But he really cares that everybody feels good about it, that everybody makes a decent living, that everybody is comfortable with the songs they're doing and stuff like that. But at the same time, as long as they're feeling that, he would tell them, this has to be done this way. Yeah. Benevolent dictatorship. Because we need a leader. Yeah. 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 And some guys can't do that. Some guys don't want to lead. Some guys don't want to follow. Yeah. And so to me, that's the best way to do it. Now, I've been playing 53 years. I can tell a couple of songs if I want to play with somebody or not. Sure. I can tell from talking to them for a while if I want to be in a band with them or not. Is your head in the same place I am? Mm-hmm. I've got a little project starting with 2 guys. One guy is a bass player, and he was in the first band I was ever in 1968. Another guy is a lead guitar player who was in the second band I was ever in 1969, 1968. He is way up there in country and western. He plays with everybody. He's been a musical director for Leroy Van Dyke for years, and he's a brilliant player, very tasty. But when I got back with Tony and played with him a few months ago, it's like we hadn't been apart for 47 years, because there are guys that I play with, and I just love them as people, wonderful people. But I don't really care to play with them. You ski? You ever go skiing? Well, I like skiing the blues, and I like skiing hard blues. And every once in a while, I'll ski a black. And I took a girlfriend with me on a trip once, and she had never skied before, and I skied greens for 3 days. Bored me to death. Okay? I want to ski the blues when I'm at a jam session. I want to ski a black every once in a while at a jam session. I don't want to stick with the greens. Okay? And there are guys that go to some of these jam sessions that play the same 3 songs the same way they played them for 9 years. I've been going to Knuckleheads for 9 years, if you can imagine that. And so, you know, once we get on the jam, well, even in bands, you want guys that are going to stretch out a little bit. You know, you don't want a guy who's going to play the same thing all the time. Because the best band are bands that grow. And you can grow by growing your song list and playing difficult stuff. The stuff that we do in Blue Plate Special is not easy stuff to learn. I mean, we just about got a song worked out called Thorazine Shuffle. It's a government mule tune. I have to sing it and play at the same time. At the same time, I have to count to 10 and then count to 12 and then count to 10 and then count to 12. That's the way the lyrics line up, and that's the way the time signature is. Very difficult, so you have to memorize the song. But the band itself is better for having learned that song because we've grown. And these guys that, I don't want to play, I don't want to work, I don't need to learn anything new. You know, I've already done it, I've played it all. You know, I look at music like a doctor practices medicine by doing it every day. And I practice music by doing it every day and continuing to learn until one of these days I'll become, you know, irrelevant. You know, I just won't be with the pack. You know, I'll still be playing government mule stuff and Billy Cobham drums when I'm 80 and everybody else will be moved on to something
That's
new.
funny. So a couple of things you said right there that was interesting. One interesting thing that Phil Shirelli actually said when he was on the show that I thought was weird was that, because he talks about his son, you know, his son is down and playing with
Tyler, Florida Georgia
Line, and he was
kid.
talking about
Great
when he went and a lot of guys try to audition people down in those big, you know, Nashville big bands, professional. He talked one thing and he was like, sometimes they'll literally have you play like 5 seconds of it, you know, I'm exaggerating, but literally like 20 seconds of a song, and they're like, okay, he's like, come on, let's go for beer, you know, and they're like, we've already seen, you know, 15 seconds longer than we need to. We know you're good. That's not the issue right now. Let's go have a beer. And so then they go sit down and talk to the guy for like an hour. Hear him play for 5 seconds and talk to him for an hour. And you were saying something about, I can tell if I'm going to like working with this guy. And I thought that was so interesting and so awesome that these guys know what's up, you know, down there. I mean, they're hiring some really good player. Everybody who comes in here is good enough player-wise, but do we want to deal with them on the road? Do we want to deal with them, you know, during in the middle of sets? Is this guy going to have 7 beers when he gets on stage? Is this guy going to, you know, is he going to be ridiculous to work with and argue with everything and da-da-da-da, you know? And I thought that was really good that you said that it's really important to go talk with the guys, because that's usually, we've talked a lot about like kind of on the bandstand moments that are annoying, but really, or on the bandstand moments that can kind of be a deal breaker a little bit in a band, but I think most of the time it's the talking stuff that ends up being the deal breaker. That's my opinion. But I really like that you said that. And the other one that I'm really curious about that you said that was great is the idea of when we were at school in college, like, I mean, 10:30 in the morning, we go to theory class and they tell us how we're doing it wrong, basically. And then you go to quartet rehearsal, how you doing it wrong. Lesson, how you doing it wrong. Orchestra, how you doing it. And so everybody's not like this, but we get in a culture of basically getting told that it's wrong, you know, and that, I'm not saying that to be a bad thing. I'm saying that you get used to taking criticism. And you just said something really interesting, how it's tough because you get in a band and these guys haven't gone through 400 violin lessons like I have, and so when you tell them, even in the nicest way possible, they get triggered and lose it, you know, and they just lose their minds because they're not used to taking criticism. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Sure, because I run into it all the time, and it's purely a personality thing. You know, like I grew up listening to records and playing like the record. Okay, I'm very comfortable doing that. When we do mule stuff, I try to learn all of Matt App's parts so I can play mule stuff. If I go to a jam session and somebody pulls out Jimi Hendrix tune, or somebody pulls out something by Cream, or somebody by Led Zeppelin, I played all those songs when they were new. I played them like the record.
Right.
So at a jam session, if a guitar player, 18-year-old guitar player, wants to play Black Dog, okay, I'm ready to go. I know all the parts.
Right.
Okay, and that really helps. I've got a very good music memory. Guys like Walt Chambers can do that. Terry Hancock can do that. You know, they've got a great memory for these songs, and they never really forget them.
Yeah.
And I'm blessed to have that when it comes to drums.
Yeah.
I can remember all these fills. You want to play the parts that make the guys comfortable. They're out there being in front. Okay. We get a lot of young guys at the jam sessions. We get a lot of old guys. Some of them can play and some of them can't. Some guys, a couple of guys, I love listening to them even though they're poor players. I love listening to them because they're so into it and they love what they're doing and they're trying. And there are guys who just don't have it. There are guys who just don't give you that feeling of, it wasn't technically good, but it just was nice that this guy's out there working on this.
Right.
Okay? And a lot of guys just don't do that. A lot of guys feel they're good enough. They pretty much have given up.
Yeah. Practicing or getting better wise, giving up. Yeah.
Sure. And so when you get guys in the band that want to go in a lot of different directions, it depends on what direction they want to go to. John wanted to go with Yoko. That's the way that band broke up. But we've got a guy in our band. You mentioned Phil. Phil enjoys country. He plays country a lot. I get hired to play a lot of country. I do the Nashville Showdown, those kind of things, is like a country American Idol.
Yeah.
I've been a house band for that a few times, and that's great that they want to play it. I'm not drawn to country music myself. I get hired to play it, but I couldn't name the songs. I couldn't name the artists, and I played with a lot of these guys. So you've got to play what you like. But if guys are moving on and want to move in a different direction, man, you got to just support them and let them go.
Yeah.
I've got a friend right now. He's really into his own music, but I don't care for his music. It's too busy. He records his own stuff in his house, and it's layer after layer after layer after layer after layer of guitar in a blues song.
Yeah.
You don't need it. Instead of just the essence of the song.
So I guess what I'm getting at is that, you're kind of answering it, is that like my question is, what do you? I want to know emotionally and like verbally what I do about that. That's what I'm trying to get out of people.
That's what I said. You just wish them luck.
You just wish them luck, and you say nothing.
Yeah. Sometimes you just have to say, that's not really what I want to do at this point in my life. Okay. Yeah. I'm 69 years old. Okay, playing 53 years. I know where I want to go with music. I want to go to music that still pushes me along. I don't want to settle into it. Now, I don't expect everybody, if Phil wants to go play country, I'm not saying he does, but if he would want to, or Willie is really into good organ, bass, and drums. Yeah. He's really into a three-piece like that. Yeah. With no vocals. Well, I'm a singer, so I enjoy vocals. Yeah. I love playing with Willie on drums, but that wouldn't be something I want to do full-time. It'd be a part-time project for me. I want to get with guys who have a like mind, who just want to create some good music. Yeah. We're going to be doing, in this new thing we're doing, a couple of Steven Seagal songs. Mr. Kung Fu. Really,
I heard that he played a little bit. That he
plays a lot. He's got a huge guitar collection, and he surrounds himself, because he can afford it, with incredible people. There's one song we're going to be doing, and Stevie Wonder plays a chromatic harmonica on it.
Yeah, right.
On his album, and that's so cool. A song is good if it's good, and if a guy wants to go in that direction from the band, maybe the band can stay together and they can have side projects. That's sort of what I'm doing with Tony and G.
That's cool.
But I don't want to give up the mule stuff. Blue Plate Special has a phenomenal song list. That's all people talk about when they come to hear us. Yeah. Musicians come to hear us because they don't get to hear these songs.
Unique songs that not everybody plays all the time. Yeah. That's cool, man. So let's just do it then. So the the open jams are really a huge part of our scene. You know, I think everybody would agree with that they're an important part of our scene, and there's a reason why everybody goes to them, because there's a lot of good stuff about them. You know, and there's a reason why they're so well attended, and even guys that are pretty set in the scene still come back and come. You know, there's a lot of good things about it, but all of us, you know, we are annoyed at one moment, and then we go to the back of the bar and we go bitch to each other, and then we, you know, and then nobody ever says anything, you know, to the person that needs to be said.
Some of us don't say something, and some of us do.
And some of us do, you know.
Some of us get in a lot of trouble.
Yeah, right, and that's kind of what that's kind of what I was getting with the last question I was asking, and we were talking about this right before we started, about general criticism in general, like, and that's what I was wanting to do with the show in general is when there's this elephant in the room at a jam, you know, and this guy is just 19 times in a row, he's come in here, played over everybody, he does the same 3 songs, he does whatever the thing is that is that big elephant in the room, and the entire audience sees it, the entire jammers see it, the houseman, you know, and nobody calls the dude on it, you know, and so it's the idea of, I think there's a lot going on there. The one that people don't take criticism very well is one. Second of all, that let's pretend somebody like a Dave Hayes in town, who's very well respected, right, knows everybody, if he would come up to somebody and say something, I think some people would take it okay because he's so well respected, but I understand why somebody like him in town wouldn't go do that, because he's trying to get people to come to his jam. If he does that to 5 jammers every night, you know, he ends up with nobody at his jam. So I understand.
Are those
the
people you want at your jam?
See, and that's the other point. Part of it. And my other part is the house, or the club owner is not looking at this as happy fun time. You know, this is a show right now. You know, there's 2 sides of this that I'm trying to.
There are 4 sides to a jam.
Yeah.
You got a club owner who wants to fill the seats,
right,
sell drinks, sell food, get tips for his girls.
Yeah.
Okay. You got a musician who said, "I'm not playing this weekend. I get to go play. I want to go up and play, and I want to go out, and people will listen to me, and I get to play different material, and it'll be great." Okay. And then you've got the audience. Okay. The audience goes there because they don't want to go there to say, "Well, when are we just going to play guitar this week?" They're going to go there because they're expecting to hear some good music coming out of a bunch of guys that they know.
Are they hoping to hear some crappy music?
Hardly ever. It happens. And, you know, the problem with an open jam is, like, it's open. Okay? You know, like the problem with an acquired taste. You have to acquire it. You know, that's not easy to do sometimes. And we've gotten to the point in Kansas City, like, the best jam I ever went to in Kansas City was run by Terry Hancock back in the 90s. And it was Blake Hughes on bass, Max Groove on keys,
Max, yeah.
J.U. Daly on guitar, Walt Chambers on guitar, Terry Hancock on drums. You cannot find 5 better players in Kansas City for that know that kind of material, that have that compendium of knowledge of, you know, mainstream songs. And Hancock would run a jam like if he invited somebody up to play and they played great, he got a second song.
Yeah.
If he didn't play great, thank you, we'll see you next week. 1 song.
Yeah, wow.
Everybody in Kansas City is entitled now.
Yeah, yeah.
It's like they're on welfare, and they expect to get those 3 songs every week, you know? And some guys don't deserve 3 songs. I'll go to a jam down at Clarksdale, Mississippi at Ground Zero. Morgan Freeman's club. It's a blues club down there. Okay, it's Ground Zero Blues Club. They stream their jam sessions, 4 or 5 of them a week.
That's cool.
Online, okay, live.
That's cool.
The first time I went down there, a guy gets up and he starts playing guitar, and the guy, hold. He stops the song, goes over and talks to the guy, and the guy picks up his stuff and leaves, okay? And so during the break, I said, "What did you say to this guy?" He said, "I told him this, man, we're glad you came, but you need to go home and practice. And when you learn a little bit more, come back, and we'll love to have you come back again." Because he was bringing down the quality of the music. There was no quality of music when that guy was playing. Okay. What they do at their jams down there, about the first 2 hours, they're auditioning people.
Yeah, wow.
And then the last 2 hours of the jam, they picked the people that they thought could
Wow.
play, and they
Wow.
put a jam together. And that is some good music because all the guys
See-
from Memphis go down there.
See, I think that is awesome.
Yeah.
I think that's awesome. So what would you say to the people? And then the fourth one that I don't know if you were going to say this, but is the house band. Because the house band has a different mentality than the jammers, because the jammers aren't getting paid tonight. They have another element to that where they want to stay.
Okay.
They want to keep their jam going, you know, because it's a gig to them, you know. So
So the
they're
house band guys are in a strange fix.
Mhm.
Most of them want to get the money. They want to play at first. Most of them want to play first hour. That's crazy. You know, play a couple of songs and start getting people up with you.
I'm with
Okay,
you on that.
and not getting platoon music. Okay, have the house band we're going to have somebody come and play guitar with us. We're going to have somebody come and play violin with us. We've got a harp player. Mo Paul's going to come up and play a couple of songs with us. You know, the house band should invite people up and give them something to work with. Okay, most of the time though, the house band gets down and they start platooning guys in. If there aren't very many jammers there, you end up with the same group of guys every 3 songs, and it's just boring as hell. And a good jam host would mix it up.
Yeah.
Okay, he would, especially like vocalists. Okay, I have a thing with vocalists. They should be at an open mic. I don't think they should be at a jam session, because if you get a vocalist up there who wants to do all 3 songs, well, there's 4 or 5 other guys up there who can sing that don't get to do anything they want to do. And so I think a vocalist, 1 song a set. If they're going to play another and sing another song, let them come back up the next set. If the vocalist is weak, and there are a lot of those, and if the harmonic player is weak, and there are a lot of those, okay.
I'm pretty over harmonica.
And if they're,
man. I'm pretty over it in this town.
I hate to say it, but because you can suck and blow on a harmonica that is already pitched to that key, you can't be wrong. My favorite jam saying that I made up was, "You can't be wrong in a bad, but you can in a jam, but you can be bad." Okay. Because in a jam you can do about anything you want as long as it works.
Yeah.
But if you can't play, or if your idea of what is good just doesn't work, you know, it leaves a funny feeling out in the crowd, because the crowd's going to applaud no matter what. If you get off of the stage, people are conditioned to say, "Nice job."
Right.
And you know, I've talked to a bunch of old time musicians. They say, "Man, that's the worst thing you can say to somebody." And you've talked to the old guys. They say that, you know, jams really, you know, if you look at the history of jams and the essence of what a jam is supposed to be, a jam is supposed to be a serious student wanting to learn something new. Okay, and that serious student is also a pro player, because the pro players want to get together and stretch out. They want other people of their caliber to see where it will go. Okay, because if you go to like Kansas City jams, you're going to end up playing a song as close to the record as you can get without going off on any tangents. What can you do with the one? How can you take that one and move it around a little bit? What can you say on your instrument to that one before the dynamics come back around again? They're so used to playing songs that are almost a formula of the recording that they don't take that one and just go measure. If you listen to, I think it's Blind Man in the Dark on the Government Mule Live at the Deep End, there's a sax solo in there that's on the one for probably 80 measures. It's brilliant, because they give this guy time to say what he needs to say. Okay, and it's he and the bass go back and forth. You can tell when the guys, you develop momentum in a song, and you get the song going, and it's going to hold that momentum, and it can bring everybody else into that stream, and it inspires everyone to want to add something to it in that stream of that momentum. And it's just a cool thing. But here in Kansas City, it's 12 bars and you're out, or 24 bars and you're out.
Yeah.
That's my other
two rounds, and then you're
my
done.
big pet peeve in Kansas City is 7 and 8 guys on stage. Okay, because I've timed it out. You can get, if you have 2 guys playing a song, most songs are about 4 minutes.
Right.
A solo is about 45 seconds.
Yeah.
Almost slow or fast. If you count it out, it's about 40 to 45 seconds. Okay, and so a guy plays it twice. All of a sudden, a 4-minute song is almost a 5-minute song. Then you get the second guitar player that wants to play his 3 minutes.
Harmonica,
all of a
sax,
sudden-
violin, all of a
Yeah.
sudden it's 8
Then you
minutes.
got the harmonica guy.
Yeah.
And then, God forbid, you've got a horn player on stage with I don't know why they do that. A sax player and a harmonica player, or a harmonica player and a trumpet player. You know, if you get a sax and a trumpet player, at least they can do ensemble stuff. And some guys get upset if I'm singing a song somewhere and I've got a horn section up there. I just tell them to do ensemble work. I don't really give them solos because the songs are long enough anyway. And songs are written to have ensemble horns in them. They're not written to have just horn solos.
Right.
Plus, there's 2 more guys noodling all the time. And there are trumpet players and there are harmonica players that play over the vocals. When a guy's trying to sing a song, they're playing over. When a guy's trying to play a lead, they're trying to play over him. They haven't learned the respect. You know, you have to respect these other guys.
Yeah.
And so some of the jams here in town are pretty sophomoric. I mean, I hate to use that word, but there are a lot of guys that all they care about is stage time and being heard.
Yeah.
And jams aren't about stage time. To me, they're not. I don't need to play on weekends because I play every day at home.
Right.
And I play enough with pickup jobs and with my band. I don't have to go to a jam. I go to see people.
Right.
Okay? If I'm lucky enough that the people I like can play well and we get up and we get called together. And even sometimes if they're kids, there's a couple of young guys that I like to play with because they're trying to learn. You know, and that's what it's for. We have one kid who used to stare at the wall, Kyle.
Mm-hmm.
He would stare at the wall, not face the crowd, and play acoustic guitar. You can throw him under the bus now. He will play anything.
Yeah.
In about 8 years, he has come that far along.
Yeah.
And it's just a pleasure to see that kind of, and he does some of the old school stuff.
Yeah. There's a bunch of stuff you said right there that was really interesting. I know one thing that I found always fun is that, you know, one advantage I have with my instrument is it's really unique. I mean, I'm the only one you ever see, you know, violin and
There's
a
another
blues
guy.
jam. Yeah, there's a couple.
He won't play in B flat though.
Yeah.
He said, I'm not going to play in B flat.
Oh man, but there's not many, you know, in
Yeah.
Kansas City, and it's all guitar and sax and whatever. But the one thing that's really interesting about trying to make sure you get your stage time, and it is annoying to me once in a while when everybody does the fills and I get my one solo, but then there's no other room for me in the entire rest of the song. And so you've seen me at jams. I literally just stand there. That's all jazz guys do, the horn players, you know, when they're not, when it's somebody else's solo, they're standing there doing nothing.
Well,
and so like but having said that, I've had times where I felt it and everybody else has felt it on stage that, you know, that like I was with some choices, and this is tooting my own horn, but there's one moment that I had with Dave Hayes one time where we were at Firehouse and we destroyed Whipping Post that night. I mean, it was just like, I mean, we just annihilated. It was a great show, and we could tell that, you know, it was a couple of songs and then Whipping Post, and this guy came off stage, or I came off stage, and, you know, I played really good, and everybody's like, oh my God, you know, Whipping Post with the violin, they were freaking out, you know, and I looked at the dude, and I'm like, and I looked at him, I'm like, yeah, you know, I pretty much kind of dominated this group tonight, you know, in a positive way. Like I was the most exciting thing about that just now. And I go, yeah, and I played a third of that set.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Of the amount of time of rest, then play and then rest. And so I think there's a huge argument to be made that, you know, you can really play absolutely nothing and destroy a dude. It reminds me of like regular improv where a guy kind of like comedy improv where a guy goes off and does his, you know, kind of Robin Williams kind of shtick where he's all over the place and talk, and then the guy comes back and he gives somebody needs Ritalin, and he gets the huge laugh. You know, the guy did 2 minutes of crap, and then the dude gives him this crazy one-liner, and he just takes over the show because it was so perfectly put. And so you know, I agree with you that it's really annoying when you have guys with that mentality of me, you know, and you can be, if you do it right, you can be way more effective with
Well,
you know,
the cool thing about your playing, and everybody's like this who's worth a crap, okay? You're fearless. You got to be fearless at a jam. Mm-hmm. You can't go up there, oh, I don't know that. No, I don't want to play that song. I don't know it. Mm-hmm. That's not the point of being a jam session. Carl Butler down at Gospel Lounge, throwing people under the bus. He loves throwing people under the bus. I love being thrown under the bus.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I was thrown under the bus a number of times New Year's Eve, but I came out because you figure it out.
Yeah.
You know, if you're a player, and I don't want to say a pro player because that gets used too much. You see it all the time in Craigslist. I got a pro player, pro gear. You know, I'm ready to go. Call me up.
Oh, you have a lot of pro gear, all right.
Oh,
but,
yeah.
but, you know.
Yeah.
But this guy's.
And a pro attitude.
Yeah.
But you don't have to be a pro to do it. You just have to be able to play. You know, guitar players that tell you I've got this and this and this and I've rigged this up and I'm going, who cares? Just play guitar.
Can you do a shuffle?
Yeah. Drummer, can you do a shuffle?
Can you
There are
do-
drummers who can't play shuffles. Absolutely cannot play shuffle. You know, and they're, you know, everybody has a right to get up. And that, let's get back to jams for a second. The jam hosts can manage these to help these guys sound better, but they don't. A good jam host thinks. A good jam host isn't out, you know, chasing women, partying with his buddies, getting back up and reading off a list, and then going back to party, okay? A jam host looks at who he's got, who he can play with, who he can put with who. Will this guy bring this guy up a level? Will this guy bring this guy down a level?
Yeah.
Okay? And that's sort of how you have to look at this stuff.
Will that guy be okay with being brought down a lot? You know,
Yeah,
that all that kind of stuff.
And then,
yeah.
you know, and, it gets to a point where the jam host has to say, we have 5 guys in here that are great players. We need to put them together, regardless of when they came in and when they signed up. Okay, having a turn counts maybe the first hour or so, but after that, the jam host should put together bands that are going to do something for the people. Because in the final analysis, if there are no people enjoying the jam, well, they won't be in the club. If there's nobody in the club, there's not going to be a jam. There's not going to be a host, host band. So you've got to keep the quality of music up there. And if people need to work on something, they really should be told they need to work on it. And if they're serious, they will work on it. You know.
You talked about being thrown under the bus. The good ones, I mean, basically most of the people that I've talked to, like almost ever in my life, always talk about the idea, and even again Phil talked about his son. He was like, he was talking about his son getting just destroyed at a audition one time. He's like, they gave it to me and I had nothing, and it was, and he said it was. And then Dave Chappelle has talked about that too. His second time out going, he's like, I bombed so bad, you know, it's the worst anybody's ever bombed in history. He's like, it's the best thing that's ever happened. You know, he talks about that mentality of getting thrown under the bus and making that be like the best thing that's ever happened to him, because he went, oh, I'm not going to do that again. You know, I'm not going to be unprepared. I'm going to go learn this song. I'm going to go learn a shuffle beat because I don't want this to happen ever again because I don't know a shuffle, you know.
Most guys don't review themselves after they've played.
Yeah.
Now, I don't much. I will if I play with somebody really well and something happens in the jam that it really takes off and goes somewhere, or if I don't feel real comfortable about it. I'll take it home and I'll go over in my head, what didn't I do? What could I have done better? If I play a song at a jam that's new to me, I'll go home and I'll look it up on YouTube. If that guy and I show up at a jam and he calls that song again, the next time I'm going to know how that song's supposed to feel. I may not know all the drum parts, but I'm going to know how that song is supposed to feel. And then if I have this basic knowledge and I'm listening to this guy, I can take the two and I can put together my presentation of how I think he wants the song to be,
cool.
To sound.
Because inevitably the dude will call it again.
Well,
you know what I'm joking? Like everybody else does
here's
their,
the deal,
their
you know,
songs.
I do a lot of songs, and a lot of guys can't play them or won't play them. I had one guy say, well, the songs you do are so hard. Why do you do songs that are so hard? Because I played the easy songs 50 years ago. You know, it's getting back to skiing the hard blues.
Sure, yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And so it's like this, bring it on. If I were a cheerleader, I'd be going, bring it on, bring it on. What do you got? Let's hear it.
And I'm definitely like you, you know, I look at, like in classical, we have a mentality of like, it's kind of the book mentality of the sense that right now I'm on book 1, right? And now I need to go to book 2, and then and eventually I want to book 5, and book, we look at music in that scale, and a lot of like blues guys, I would say, don't look at it in that same sense, where they kind of learn 8 chords. You know, they're a couple of minors, couple of majors, my sevens, and then they learn shuffle, funk,
pentatonic
slow,
scale,
their blues scale, and then there isn't anything else to do. They've done it because now they can play 800 blues songs. You know, because they know their 3 keys in their or their 5 keys and their 3 styles, and they're done. There's nothing of it. There's nothing more to learn. And I don't mind that because they don't care about jazz. They don't care about classical. They want to play blues. And I'm like, good for you. Do it. But I totally disagree in the sense that don't complain to me when you're not getting any better because they don't have that mentality of, you know, well, yeah, Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star is an awesome song. Have you ever heard Whipping Post? You know, have you ever heard, you know, Debussy? Have you ever heard Mozart? Have you ever heard Miles Davis? Have you know, like you're just missing the you know, it's like loving Australia, but that's all you know. And I'm like, have you ever seen Africa?
To do a couple of Dave Brubeck things, rock and roll style, Blue Rondo all the turn.
Yeah,
okay,
that's a fabulous song.
I'd love to do that, you know, with a rock band, just to see what would happen with it.
How many guys can handle that song?
What was the other one? Others that I can't think of the name of right now, but yeah, on Dave Brubeck's Take 5 album, there are 2 songs on there I'd like to see a band do.
It's a beautiful song. So one other thing that you said there that was really interesting, and I don't necessarily want to. Okay, so there was a guy in town, and I won't mention his name, but he put out a Facebook post a couple years ago, and it was about jams, and he mentioned the same word you did with serious students, and his perspective was probably very similar to yours, where he goes. His premise of his post was, I think jams are for professionals and serious students. That was basically the sentence that he put out, and then he, you know, explained why. But at first, I 100% agreed with that, and then I kind of backtracked myself a little bit, and I'm like, well, I would, you know, in my eyes, I would open it up to a couple more people, but I 100% understand his perspective of the fact of like, you need to be ready to be at this jam right now. You know, you need, and that, so I 100% agreed with him on that premise of this is what this is for, of people that are like going to take this seriously and are going to take their music career seriously.
Well, and that's part of the problem, because I do take it seriously. You can tell, you know, I listen to songs. I'll go home and I'll look something up. I listen to guys while I'm sitting in the crowd, you know.
You care about bettering bettering your talent and bettering, you know, like.
And to me, jams in Kansas City have just turned into this casual thing where a name could show up. You know, just name anybody you think is good. The hosts love to get them there because they rarely come, and they rarely come because the jams are so simple. Okay, but when they do show up, the jam host goes crazy and gets them up there. And the guys who play a lot, who are just good, just can't get it up to go to play with some of these things.
The last thing that I'll say on this, I guess, is the idea that this question has a million political connotations to it. But what would you say to the people that feel that you and I's perspective on you need to be good enough to be at this jam, and those guys saying, you were talking about the one in Mississippi or whatever, where the guy gets up in one song, he's like, well, you know, and what would you say to the people that think that that's too harsh?
I just need to tell them that, you know, Dennis Miller, the comedian, okay, he said there are 2 worlds. There's the real world and there's the joke world. And in the joke world, you got to wear a cup. Okay, so in the jam world, you got to wear a cup. Do you want to know what people think about your playing honestly?
Yeah. Do you want to know? Yeah.
Like when you tell somebody to turn down, it's not a personal affront. It's a critique.
Yeah.
It's telling someone that their presentation isn't working.
Yeah.
Okay, and it's trying to help them along. If I would come and say, you're a little flat on your low E.
Right.
They would love to hear that, because if they can't hear it, they'll fix it, and they know they'll sound better. Okay. So when you look at volume as a critique, if you look at, you know, work on this, you know, there seems to be a boy, I'm going to get in trouble for this. Can you edit this out? There seems to be a crop of women now in their 40s and 50s who decided they should have been singers all their lives.
Oh.
And some of them are just really
Please
nice girls.
mention names.
No. But you know, how
Out
can you
yourself.
all of a sudden have this epiphany that I should have been a singer? Okay, when you can't count. We all know the girl knocking on. How do you know there's a chick singer knocking on your door? Oh well, that's kind of mean. Anyway,
But yeah,
but
yeah.
it's not just chick singers.
Oh no,
It's harmonica
it's
players
a-
too. Because you know, harmonica is the cheapest. It's the cheapest instrument to buy, the easiest instrument to carry, the easiest instrument in the world to play.
But they bring in their triple stack. It's not the easiest instrument to play. For one harmonica.
Yeah. For a harmonica player to gain my respect, I want to hear him play chromatic.
Yeah.
If a guy can
A lot
play
of guys
chromatic
can't.
harmonica,
A lot of guys can't.
I know they can. A lot of guys don't know what harmonica to use for a key. There was a guy, Knuckleheads, 3 weeks ago, brought one harmonica, and he wasn't going to get on.
So you and I didn't coin this phrase, but I said this a couple of my shows back, is that I figured it out what my annoyance with in bands is. It's when, and it's this word cluelessness. That's what I'm annoyed at with basically any moment, is the cluelessness of when a singer gets up and they go, well, I don't know what key I sing this in, right? It's the cluelessness of not knowing what harmonica you're supposed to be playing on here. A cluelessness to know that, oh yeah, that's called a shuffle. You know, it's cluelessness of when they get up at a jam and you try to call a 11 chord song with this group on stage. Really stupid. You know, you need to call,
Well,
and
you can
it's
be-
all those cluelessness moments, and that's maybe what both of us are kind of trying to say, where we're maybe at a point where I'm kind of over cluelessness. I'm
Well, you
emotionally
can be
over
clueless
it.
because you're naive, and you can be clueless because you're self-absorbed.
Mm-hmm.
You can't be self-aware if you're self-absorbed. It's impossible. And if you're self-absorbed in your new career, or it's just in being on stage, or I want to be in a band. What do you want to play? I don't care. I just want to be in a band. You know what I mean. And singing's easy, and harmonica's easy. I want to be on stage with a band. A lot of these singers that show up to these things really should be, like I said, at an open mic instead of a jam. Because they're using up a lot of time, and they're using up resources, and they're stealing time away from them, and they're not aware of how they are. They haven't paid their dues. They haven't schooled themselves. And in music, the only way you can learn is to have feedback, negative feedback.
Yeah.
If everything you do is great,
And perfect. Yeah.
you're never going to review what you've done because it's good enough.
Yeah.
And I've been called a jam snob because I've gone to probably 2 jams a week.
I probably am too.
I've gone to a couple jams a week since 1993 or 94, something like that, since the Terry Hancock thing.
Yeah.
And so I know all these guys, and if you don't know the person, you know the type.
Yeah.
You know exactly what I'm talking about. Because, jams are a cross-section of humanity.
Yeah.
They're just people who happen to have an instrument in their hand, who happen to be in a bar between 10 and 12.
Right.
Okay?
Right.
And so you can listen to a type, and before they even go on stage, you can tell what they're going to be like. And there is another difference I have to get right out. There are some fabulous players out there. I know a couple of drummers have great hands.
Yeah.
Couldn't find a groove with a shovel. They just can't find a groove. There are guys who are great players who can't jam. There are guys who can write who can't play.
Oh, sure.
There are guys who can play solos but don't know chords.
Right,
There are guys who play chords that can't play solos.
Yeah.
Because
they're
they're
talent,
people. It's a
yeah.
cross section of humanity.
Right.
People have different talents in different areas.
Well, that's great. That's not a bad thing, But yeah, I know what you mean.
So I get snobby in the sense that I would like to be able, in the writing that I do, I write for magazines for a living, and I'm paid for 40-some years to review something and give an honest opinion of it in print. And so I can't help but do that when I go to see a jam. And you're sitting there at a table, and somebody walks in, oh, here's this guy, we're going to do this song, this song, and this song.
Yeah.
Okay, and then you hear non-musicians behind you saying the same thing. You know the guy's worn out his welcome, but they'll applaud for him because he is up there playing.
Black Magic Woman's coming. And then there you go, third song. It's like, no. But anyway, yeah. So I don't know. I'm always really fascinated by that. And again, I don't want to get into a political conversation, but this is a big thing in our political landscape right now of people not being able to take criticism and obsessing about feelings when they need to kind of just realize that this and you mentioned something too, that I'm really talking about your volume right now. Everything else you're doing is great.
Yeah.
You just need to turn yours from a 6 to a 3, and then you're going to do perfect. And then they lose their minds, and people are nervous that that this guy's going to lose it in the bar right in front of the house band and make a big scene or not come back, or and some dudes will be mad and never come back and go tell a bunch of other people how much a dick this guy was and stuff.
But do you want them at your jam?
Yeah, and
you've got to have people at jam that are going to support the jam, and that are going to perform well.
Yeah.
Okay. You've got to have an audience that is used to hearing good music, that has a certain amount of taste.
Yeah.
That know that they can depend on this jam host or this club to have entertainment there.
Yeah.
That's going to be good entertainment. It's not going to be something we're going to have one drink and leave.
And that you mentioned too, that's another really good point, because that's what happened to me. I know when I started running my band, is that I was 100%. It was like this battle of club owner musician to me. I saw the spectrum of you're either this side or that side, and so at first I was 100% with the musicians. I 100% understood, oh, all these guys are evil, they're just out there for money, da-da-da. And then when I ran my band, it's not that I came over to their side, but I was like, oh, there's 4 people in this restaurant right now. I get it now. I understand. They can't give us $500. There's 4 people in this place.
Well, in the old days, when I started playing Kansas City, there were like Bobby D's West, Instant Replay, places like that, One Block West. These are big clubs that were packed all the time.
Yeah.
The music scene has changed.
Sure. The
people that own clubs have changed. Okay, they don't get the volume in there they used to get. There used to be cover charges.
Yeah.
I think there should be cover charges. Why should a guy walk into someplace for free, get a phone call from a friend of his, and just take off and go somewhere else because he didn't have anything invested in being there? Okay.
That's interesting. Yeah.
And I think if a guy wants to see a band, he should put down his $3, $4, $5, whatever it is. The best place I ever went was Quincy, Illinois. You pay $4 to get in, you get a free beer. Costs a guy 75 cents, but you get a beer.
Yeah.
Okay. And you're invested in the place.
Yeah.
And that'll pay for the band. And Kansas City is it's a funny market. A lot of people say Kansas City has pretty much lost it. Because it's not the same. The guys who used to run Bobby D's, they were supportive of the bands. They talked to the band. They respected the bands. You guys need this. You guys need that.
Yeah.
These days, all you are is an expense.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay? And bands don't market themselves well. There's a band out there that plays everywhere once because they get out and they market.
Yeah.
There's a band out there that will undercut anybody. You can undercut a band, and you will be undercut by this band.
Well, there's some bands that play everywhere once because they don't market. They play once, and the guy's like, well, there's 10 people in this place.
Sure.
You guys are great players, but, and then they go to the next place, and it's the same thing. There's 7 people in the bar, and the guy's like, well, you guys are really good, but, and then they just keep going to every single bar, and they get basically kicked out of bars one after another. And that was the other big thing that I've come to the other conclusion about, is that, I 100% see the musician's argument that, that is it our job to bring you your literal entire, not some, but your literal entire bar.
Oh, yeah.
But I also see the bar owner's perspective now. I understand that that how is this hurting your band to market yourself? tell me how that hurts your band to market your own self.
It does.
Do you know what I mean? You know, so I see a balance there. I'm
Well,
kind of skirting the fence
You
on
know,
it.
if
but,
you go to a club
you know.
owners and you talk about your band hiring, how many friends do you have on Facebook?
Yeah.
Okay, you know, in the final analysis, every bar out there is a neighborhood bar.
Yeah.
Okay, every bar out there has people that live in that neighborhood that stop in or are going from work, stop in that bar for drinking and going home. Okay, every band is a neighborhood bar. There's a place we play down south, and I told the girl, I said, we're from Kansas City. They don't know us down here. She said, well, I've heard you, and I like you, and I have the same crowd every week. It's my job just to make sure that there's good entertainment.
Yeah.
See, and that's what I owe my clientele,
Right.
because they're the same people every week.
And you notice which bars do really well in town. Green Lady, they kill it. You know, I mean, they're a jazz club, and they have the Phoenix is another one that's pretty established. But everybody knows that when you go to the Green Lady, it is not going to be a crappy band. When you go to the Phoenix, it's pretty much not going to be a crappy band. Even a place like BB's is sort of like that. They have a pretty decent clientele, and that you know that first of all you're going to get blues, and you're probably going to get some pretty good blues in general.
Frank's going to rockabilly. Have you noticed that?
No, yeah.
Frank's going a lot of rockabilly down there.
But even so, you know, there's some bars in town, and obviously Knuckleheads is a big, you know, big. They pretty much only hire at least draw crowd people, and so that's and the thing about that too is kind of the different types of bars too, because we noticed this when we went down to talk to the Ozarks area. They're like, dude, we get it. You know, you're not bringing a crowd to this bar. It's 3 hours away, you know. But they're like, we don't care. I mean, June 17th, this place is going to be packed, right? July 40 or July 28th, this is still going to be packed. You know, it's during summer and what, you know. So they're sitting at the same mentality that lady is, where she's like, I don't care about you bringing me a crowd. There's already going to be it's already going to be out the door packed anyway. But in my opinion, the club owners in Kansas City don't see it that way. You know, they don't see it.
You're an expense. You're a $300 or $400 expense. Yeah. Okay, and that's how they look at it. Yeah. And so the clubs don't promote the bands like they should. Like, we make our own posters up and get our posters out ahead of time. Yeah. So, you know, everything is marketing. You have to decide what you want your band to sound like, and that's your product. And you have to fill that product. You have to achieve that goal. Yeah. We do very few top 40 tunes. Yeah. Allman Brothers, Government Mule, you know, stuff like that. We bring back some classic stuff that's really good, some Three Dog Night, Zombies, you know, stuff like that. That we do our own take on some of the stuff. Dave Matthews, She's Not There, great song, great version of it. But you just have to be able to entertain people. Now, we have a lot of crowds that come to see Blue Plate Special who don't dance at all. Yeah. We had there's one club we played at, and they'll never hire us back because they had a history of sending the bands home early and only paying them half if they didn't have a crowd. Okay? That's a pretty insecure club owner. Okay? That's a club owner who doesn't promote. That's a club owner who doesn't know its clientele.
Needs the bands in order to draw a crowd.
We went out, we let them know ahead of time, we're coming out and we're going to load, unload, set up, we're going to play 4 hours, and we expect a certain amount of money. And we're not leaving early, and we will play our full 4 hours, and that's the way. They'll never hire us again after that. But when we got out there were 31 people in the club. There were 87 people in the club at 1 o'clock in the morning. Every one of them stayed. Yeah. We're really good at holding a crowd because you don't know what you're going to hear. Musicians come to hear us because they say, we don't get to hear this kind of music in Kansas City. You know, so it's marketing. The band has to market. The club has to market. And then the people have to decide if the entertainment is worth it and if the club is a decent venue. You know, if you go to a club where there's 4 or 5 resident drunks or 4 or 5 resident slobs, you know, or the club never cleans up, or if the smoke crackers have been out of order for 3 years, you're not going to get a lot of people in there.
It's kind of an entire package you're talking, of what, and that's So yeah, and I just
Well,
love
Marshall
that.
Saper, remember him, the economist?
Mhm.
He's a psychologist. He has a show here in Kansas City. People call about problems with their kids. You get the kids you deserve. Okay. Okay. Clubs get the crowds they deserve.
That's a heck of a quote. You get the kids you deserve.
Yeah. and clubs are the same way. I mean, if you treat your local clientele with respect,
Mhm.
and if you give them good entertainment and give them a value for their dollar and give them a comfortable place to come and be, okay, you got it made. That's what Frank does down at Knuckleheads.
Yeah.
That's what Christine does.
Yeah.
Her place. That's a littlest place in Kansas City, but it's probably the most fun.
Yeah, yeah, she's got a good thing going on
Yeah.
there. So cool, man. Maybe two more quick ones here for you. We've talked a lot about obviously Vice and stuff, but what would you say is maybe one or two kind of biggest piece of advice you would have for those kind of 20-ish-year-olds or younger guys that are just now ready to kind of, or thinking at least about, yeah, either going to the jams or become a professional musician? You got any advice for them?
I would say find your sound.
Mm.
I play with a couple of musicians, a couple of young guys. I played with one guy. He's sort of gotten out of music right now, but when he was 18, he was like Joe Bonamassa good.
Mm.
Brilliant kid. And he studied and studied and studied and practiced and practiced and practiced. And he found his sound.
Mm.
There's a kid I play with right now at the jam sessions. He's 19. His mom and dad are very positive about his music career. The kid's a good player, but he's not paying his dues.
Mm.
Okay? He hasn't found his sound. He complains, well, I can't get my sound out of this amp. Well, bring your own amp.
Mm.
Well, it's too heavy. What do you want? Do you want to not have to carry an amp, or do you want to sound good on stage?
Mm.
If you're going to produce a sound, if you're going to produce music the way you think you have to produce it from your soul and your head, you've got to have the equipment that's going to let you do it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's difficult as a drummer to play on some of the drums that I have to play on at these jam sessions.
Mm.
Besides the fact that they're set up all cattywampus, most of the heads are worn out on dead.
Sure.
You
Yeah.
know, or the cymbals are too loud, or the cymbals don't sound good, and it's difficult to really emote,
Mm.
you know, a song, especially if you're singing and playing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, I need the drums to be set and done with,
Yeah.
so I can
So you don't
focus
have
on
to
what I'm
think on
doing
them,
as a
yeah.
vocalist.
Yeah.
Okay, and you just can't do that at some of these drum kits in the jam sessions, and I'm sure that a lot of guitar players, Bruce Sider brings his own gear, you know, J.D. Summers brings his own gear, because they know their sound.
Yeah.
And they know how to get it. And that's what I would say to a young kid. You probably never have a new car, probably never have a brand new house, if you want music to be in your life. If you want to be Chris Fryer, the guy I talked to in Birmingham, first time I went to his house, he's never had a job other than as a drummer.
Yeah. Wow.
I went to his house, marble columns, had a 3 horses in a fountain with a circle driveway and a 3-car garage, and I go in his office and he's got CMA awards and he's got Grammys. All this guy's ever done is play drums,
Wow.
but he plays drums well,
Yeah.
and he decided that's what he wanted to do.
Good for
Most
him.
of us aren't going to get to that level
Yeah.
because we can't. We have life to deal with. We have relationships to deal with.
Yeah.
A lot of us, just by being musicians, are sort of childish and immature. You know?
I always
But
say
it's
we're-
that playfulness.
Yeah.
It's that playfulness and that optimism that keeps us doing this
Yeah.
stuff.
This is a Christopher Lloyd quote from a movie. We're adults, technically. You know,
Yeah,
like that's a
exactly.
good line. But
Exactly.
but you said something interesting about, and this is again, this has 1,000 other political connotations to it. But the idea of figure it out, you know, be a little bit more creative. The kid's sitting there like, but my da 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 da, you know, like, dude, bring your own amp, dude, you know, get another guitar,
Yeah.
like figure out to get some money to go get a guitar, you know, like change your song, like
Pay your dues.
pay your dues, like
Pay your dues.
my thing is just
You
like,
can't live at home when you're 19 and not
Mhm.
have a girlfriend and live with your mom and dad
Mm.
and pay your dues.
Mm.
You can't do it. When I was 19, I started playing when I was 18. I totally divorced myself from my family financially
Mhm.
when I was 19. And I had to make a living.
Mhm.
And so I would play jobs for $25, $30. You know,
Yeah.
of course, this was 50 years ago.
Yeah.
first job I ever played, I made $7.45. Okay, and I was a musician.
Wow.
Okay, and I knew what I wanted to do.
Yeah.
And so you can have jobs on the side, and ideally you'll have a career on the side, because the good musicians are bright people, and the good musicians can figure things out, because you have to be a manager. You have to have control of your life.
Yeah.
Now there are guys who say, "Oh, his art is so great, and he died so young because he did drugs." Well, to me, that's not really a success story. You can have a lot of good ideas. Everybody has good ideas. But how do those ideas grow? How do you grow as a person? Do you want to grow just as a musician?
Yeah.
Or do you want to grow as a person?
Yeah.
I went to Victor Wooten's seminar a couple of weeks ago
Wow.
down, and he talked about 3 hours. It was the most inspiring seminar I've ever been to, and it was on bass. And I'm a drummer, but bass and drums are like brothers and sisters, okay? And Victor Wooten talked for 3 hours about how your music is going to reflect your life, and your life is going to reflect your music.
Wow. Yeah.
And
You
everything
play like
he
you
talked
live.
about.
Yeah.
He said, you go through life. He said, I know that the buzzer on my microwave is D flat. Okay. I know that my horn is a G.
What's your
know,
doorbell?
I know when I'm driving 60 miles down the road, on one road, I'm getting 140 beats a minute, that kind of stuff. He said, you've got to bring your music into your life. You've got to understand, that it's all one thing.
Yeah, that's great. So last question for you. I've been trying to end all the shows like this. Is everybody loves gig stories? You got a really crazy moment or a really great moment, or a completely horrible moment that you're laughing at now, or like.
I have so many.
Yeah.
Because I've been very lucky. I was just barely starting to play, and I could sit in with a band called the Music Machine back in the 60s. They did a song called Talk Talk. And then I met a drummer once who was playing with Kenny Rogers in the first edition. So he invited me up to their sound check and asked me if I'd play drums for their sound check for Kenny Rogers.
Wow.
Okay. And so that kind of stuff. And I've been really lucky to meet people along the way. I played on Guam. I've played in Mexico, Canada.
Cool.
Toured in club bands. I've toured in the tribute band. Nominated for a Grammy last year. It's just the different places you play. I was up on a drum riser on top of the stage, on top of an 18-wheeler flatbed, so I was way up there.
Yeah, that's way up there.
And it had rained. It was a 4,000 bikes at a bike rally in McAllen, Texas.
Yeah, wow.
So we're down there, and the cloud burst. Everybody, all the other bands quit. We're supposed to start at 11 o'clock. Well, we stick around. The other bands have gone. Everybody's hanging out in the rain. The rain moves out. We start playing at 1:30. The crowd loves us because we stuck around to play for them, doing a ZZ Top show in Texas, okay?
Yeah.
Which is great. And we're up there playing, and I feel something on my shoulder, look over, and there's a boob on my shoulder. And I feel something on my other shoulder, and there's a boob on my other shoulder. So I'm sitting there playing, and feeling like, got milk?
That's funny.
And this drunk guy down there, hey, baby, you having fun? It's his girlfriend. Hey, baby, are you on stage?
Goodness gracious. That is funny.
I've seen violence.
Yeah.
I've seen fights. I've seen shootings.
Oh, wow.
I've seen accidents. I've seen a balcony collapse with people on it. I saw a boat blow up. I was playing on the Larry Don excursion boat. We were playing in a cove, and the guy, we were going to turn around to go back in at the end of the cruise, and all these boats had followed us and were circling us in this cove, or we're parked there, and this guy started his boat up without blowing the bilge up, and then boom, just blew this boat up. So,
it's
so
a great
many
business to get into.
That's just it. You get the business you deserve. You get the experiences you deserve.
Yeah.
And that's what I tell kids who want to play. I can't imagine being my age and not having played music.
Yeah.
And I know what I've had to give up. And I accepted that right off the bat.
Yeah.
And I've gone against it. I have had new cars. I have had a new house. I've managed to do that because of writing, because of working, having a good work ethic. You can't just lay around and dream of being a star and get good.
It doesn't work that way.
You have to have a work ethic.
Yeah.
I see a lot of kids these days that really don't have that. A lot of kids learn a lot of chops, and so they can play little bits and pieces of all this great classic stuff,
Yeah.
but they only play the hooks. They
Yeah.
don't know how to apply it to
Oh
music.
yeah, sure.
They don't know how to work it into a song. They don't
Yeah.
know how to work it into a jam.
Yeah.
That's why there are so many venues now that a lot of bands only know 8 or 10 songs.
Yeah.
Young guys, so they have to have 3 bands to do a show a night.
This happens with Guitar Center, right? You walk in there and they know the one riff,
Oh,
and
yeah.
you're like, "Can you play a song, like a full song?" And they're like, they stare at you, and you're like, "Yeah, it's because you don't know how to apply it.
Sure,
you don't know."
sure.
And
Yeah.
Charles Barkley talks about that discipline stuff too in basketball. He's like everybody thinks that you get to the NBA with just talent. He's like, that's ridiculous. There's tons of guys that are talented. The guys that get to the NBA are the ones that have work ethic as well.
Yeah.
There's a ton of dudes that have crazy talent in high school and then they get into drugs or get into whatever and they don't have the work ethic and they accidentally peter out accidentally.
Well, and the other thing too is that you have to mature as a musician, and you have to know what is a good song. You don't learn the songs because it has a good guitar lick in it.
Mm.
That doesn't make it a good song.
Mm. That's a good guitar lick.
Yeah, it's a good guitar lick. It's a good part of a song. It may be a great hook, and as a hook, it's designed to make you
Your
glom
song look
onto
like
that
a good song.
Exactly.
That's cool, man. Well, we'll definitely say your band name again one more time for
It's
everybody.
a Blue Plate Special.
Yeah, you guys should come and check them out. I've seen your guys' posters, and I know half your band. I need to come out and see you guys sometime. I haven't
should.
done that yet.
You should.
And but yeah, man. So again, I'm just trying to talk to some people and hear some different opinions about the music scene, and it's really fun for me to. I've noticed that because there's not very many violin players in town. All of my friends are not violin players. They're all drummers and bass. Jim Kent's another good buddy of mine. Again, I'm friends with a whole bunch of bass players. I have like 7 bass player friends.
Well,
It's
that's
just
another
funny.
As a musician, you got to respect the other
Oh
musicians.
yeah.
The guys that are good,
Yeah.
if they don't play your genre,
Mm-hmm.
man, if they're good, respect them,
Oh, yeah.
support them. Live music is the way to go. I don't know what's going to happen with music.
Mm-hmm.
Now that they're calling rap, disc jockeys musicians now and giving them musicians awards.
What, are you saying rap music's an oxymoron? No, I'm
I
just
love
kidding.
the energy of rap music.
Yeah, I like
As a
rap
drummer,
too.
I
Yeah.
love the energy.
Yeah,
I don't care for the attitude though,
Mm.
because it's not my style. It's
Sure.
not my culture.
yeah,
But the energy,
Yeah.
there's no denying it
Yeah.
that you get wrapped up in it.
right.
But that's like playing one guitar hook,
Mm-hmm.
and you see a lot of people that just get caught up in the bass beat. Bass is huge
Yeah,
these days, all about the bass,
yeah,
and people get caught up in that, and they make that good song, and the song goes viral, and that's it.
yeah.
And there's I was with someone today, and she tells some good songs to listen to on YouTube. So I sent her to James Brown and Luciano Pavarotti doing
Mhm.
"This Is a Man's World."
Mm-hmm.
It'll raise the hair up on the back of
Yeah,
your neck.
wow.
It's so good. And Tina Turner doing the Beatles song "Help."
Yeah.
Totally different version of that
Right.
song, and it brings a meaning to it
Mm-hmm.
that is just, it's heartrending if you listen to her sing it that way.
Oh wow.
And so you have to respect the people that can take a song and see something that you didn't see and bring that out.
Mm-hmm.
And to me, that's presentation.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. Well, this is Jim Cavanagh, drummer in Kansas City. Blue Plate Special. Come check him out. We will be back next time with somebody else. I don't know who it is, but anyway, see you guys later. That's the show. Have a good day.